Stop with the dramatic black woman routine. Your type always exaggerates pain. The doctor's fingers stabbed the mute button, slicing the fetal monitor's scream into silence. The shrill alarm died mid-wail, the flat line of quiet spreading across the hallway as if it had never sounded at all. On the bed, the woman's back arched. Sweat slicked the rail where her fingers slipped and scraped. "I can't feel my baby," she whispered, voice shredded and small. "You're not dying," the doctor sighed, already turning away. "You're anxious. Try acting like an adult." Behind her stood a man with granite shoulders and eyes locked on the doctor's retreating back. The doctor never noticed what that quiet man was carrying, or that every word he just tossed away was about to cost him everything. Before we go any further, pause for a second and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. And make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's story is one you do not want to miss. The fluorescent glare in the emergency department carved harsh shadows across Naomi Ward's face as she gripped her husband's hand. Midnight stretched thin over the polished linoleum, the whole world reduced to the beep of monitors and the ragged catch of her breath. "Elias," she whispered, the other hand clamped to her swollen belly, "this isn't normal. It feels like something is ripping inside." 8 months pregnant, Naomi had been laughing and glowing over baby names the night before. Now her warm brown skin had gone ashen, sweat gathering in trembling beads across her forehead. Nurse Tessa Glenn pushed the wheelchair with practiced efficiency, her hand steady even as her eyes flicked from Naomi's face to the portable monitor. "Pressure's climbing," she murmured. "We need a room and a doctor now." "Please," Elias said, keeping his tone calm and measured by force. "These symptoms hit all at once. She needs immediate attention. Let's not get ahead of ourselves." Dr. Preston Hargrove's voice slid into the air like a silk-covered blade. He approached with unhurried steps, glancing at the chart as if it were an afterthought. "Mrs. Ward, is it?" he asked. "First pregnancies can feel overwhelming. Anxiety's perfectly normal." Naomi shook her head, tears brightening her eyes. "No, doctor. I've read everything I could about labor. This is different. It's like something is tearing." Anxiety often presents as physical pain. Hargrove cut in smoothly, his smile never reaching his eyes. "Especially in certain populations who may not be as familiar with proper prenatal care." Elias felt his fingers twitch in Naomi's hand, but his voice stayed level. "We followed every recommendation. She's had consistent prenatal care. Something is wrong." "Doctor," Nurse Glenn stepped forward. "Her blood pressure is 160/95, and it's still rising. Maybe we should—" "Thank you, Nurse Glenn." The temperature in Hargrove's tone dropped. "I'm capable of assessing my own patient." He turned back to Naomi. "We'll put you in the hallway for observation. No need to tie up a room just yet." The sharp click of heels announced the arrival of Hospital Administrator Gail Renshaw, her suit immaculate, hair perfect despite the hour. "Dr. Hargrove, everything under control?" she asked. "We need to maintain our emergency response metrics." "Just an anxious mother-to-be," he assured her. "Nothing that justifies disrupting protocol." They wheeled Naomi to a spot against a wall beneath a flickering light. A thin curtain on a bent metal track offered the illusion of privacy. Elias's FBI instinct screamed at him to seize control, to demand action, to shield his wife from incompetence. But he knew how fast a black man's concern could be labeled aggression in a place like this. One raised voice, one wrong move, and security would have him out the door. "I'll keep an eye on her," Tessa whispered as she adjusted Naomi's fore. "Stay calm if you can." Naomi's grip tightened on Elias's hand as another wave of pain slammed through her. "Baby," she gasped. "I can't. Something is really wrong. I can feel it." "I'm right here," Elias said, thumb stroking the back of her hand. He watched the monitor numbers tilt higher, his stomach nodding as her face twisted with pain. Hargrove strode past without slowing. "Imaging is backed up. We'll reassess in an hour or two." "An hour?" Elias's voice frayed around the edges. "Her pain is getting worse by the minute." "Mr. Ward." Hargrove let the words drip with condescension. "I understand you're worried, but this level of dramatics doesn't help anyone. Perhaps encourage her to calm down." Tessa appeared again, worry tightening her face as she checked Naomi's vitals. Doctor, her pressure's still climbing. Shouldn't we at least? Unless you've acquired a medical degree overnight. Nurse Glenn, he snapped, eyes still on his phone, stick to your assigned tasks. Moments later, Naomi's fingers slackened in Elias's grip. Her eyes went glassy, unfocused. The monitor's rhythm pitched into something frantic. Alarms erupted, sharp and insistent, filling the hallway with urgency. Elias turned toward the nurse's station, expecting a rush of movement. Nobody hurried. Then, with a simple, practiced gesture, Hargrove reached in and silenced the alarm. The lights stopped flashing. The beeping cut off. Why'd it stop? Elias demanded. The alarm, why did it? Tessa's face had gone pale as she stared at the screen. For the first time that night, real fear sliced through Elias's carefully trained calm. Naomi's scream tore the hallway apart. Her body bowed off the bed. Monitors exploded into chaos, numbers spiraling. Blood pressure dropped while her pulse raced out of control. Code blue. Tessa slammed her hand into the emergency call button. We need help in the hall now. Her other hand flew across the equipment, trying to pull order from spinning chaos. Hargrove sauntered over, annoyance etched across his features. With a smooth motion, he reached past Tessa and pressed the alarm mute again. These readings are obviously erroneous, he said. Hallway equipment glitches all the time. False. Elias grabbed his arm, the last of his restraint tearing. Look at her. She's dying. Remove your hand, Hargrove said icily. Security. She needs imaging now, Elias insisted, letting go but planting himself in front of the exit. Get a surgeon down here. Something inside has torn. Mr. Ward, Hargrove said, disdain sharpening every syllable. Your emotional state is not helping. Step aside and let professionals work. Professionals? Elias's voice shook. You haven't done a single thing. Naomi jerked again, eyes rolling back as her oxygen plunged. The monitor's Hargrove hadn't silenced shrieked in protest. A young resident in rumpled scrubs rushed up, face pale. Doctor, her stats are critical. Should I call Dr. Parker? You questioning my assessment? Hargrove asked quietly. The resident's gaze bounced between Naomi's convulsing body and his superior's ice-cold stare. And no, sir. But protocol. I'm a protocol, Hargrove snapped. Stand down. Tessa pressed gloved hands against Naomi's abdomen. She's hemorrhaging. Doctor, please. This is what happens when we allow hysteria to override sound judgment, Hargrove muttered, glancing at his watch. If everyone is quite finished. Blood soaked through the thin sheet beneath Naomi. The resident took half a step forward, then froze again under Hargrove's glare. Do something, Elias roared, his self-control finally shattering. She's bleeding out. Security appeared at both ends of the corridor, hands on radios. Administrator Renshaw floated into view beside them, smile stretched too tight. Mr. Ward, lower your voice, she said. This is a hospital. It's a slaughterhouse, Tessa snarled, still pressing on Naomi's abdomen. She needs surgery now. The numbers crashed. Naomi's eyes fluttered. Her grip on Elias's hand slipped away. Fine, Hargrove said at last, flicking his fingers. Call it, but document my objection to this overreaction in the chart. Then everything dissolved into white noise chaos. A trauma team burst in, shouting orders. The resident finally found his courage, calling for blood, for an oar, for a crash section. Tessa rattled off vitals as they sprinted Naomi towards surgery, blood trailing across pristine tile. Elias tried to follow, but security stepped in front of him, forming a wall of uniforms and radios. Through the gaps, he watched his wife vanish around a corner, swallowed by swinging doors and cold light. Time stretched. 10 minutes or 10 years later, the resident emerged from the oar, his scrubs soaked red, his face hollowed out. The baby, Elias asked, voice barely there. We got her out, the resident said, swallowing. She's in critical care, but she's stable. And my wife? The resident's eyes filled. He shook his head once. The world went silent. Sound warped and distant as if Elias were underwater. Through the roar in his ears, he saw Hargrove at the nurse's station, dictating into a recorder. Patient presented with anxiety complaints, the doctor said calmly. Deteriorated rapidly despite appropriate care. Complications arose unexpectedly. Death was unavoidable given patient condition. Elias lunged. A broken animal sound ripped from his chest as security slammed him against the wall. "Sir, calm down or we'll have to remove you," one warned. "My wife is dead," Elias choked. "He let her die. He just watched." "Mr. Ward," Hargrove said, brushing invisible lint from his coat. "These situations are always tragic, but dramatics won't change reality. Perhaps if she'd been more compliant with prenatal." "You son of a—" "Remove him," Renshaw ordered, "and call the police if needed. We can't tolerate this disruption." The guards began hauling Elias down the hall. The fight drained from his muscles, leaving only a cold, rising darkness. Slowly, deliberately, he reached for his wallet. They tensed, expecting a phone. Instead, he flipped open a worn leather case. Gold caught the fluorescent light. "FBI." The stairwell door slammed behind him a few minutes later, echoing like a gunshot. Halfway up, on the concrete steps, stood Dr. Preston Hargrove, one hand on the rail, frozen mid-stride. "Excuse me," the doctor snapped. "I have patients to—" "Special Agent Elias Ward," Elias said, holding up his credentials. His voice was steel-wrapped in velvet. "We need to talk about how my wife died." Color leached from Hargrove's face. His confident mask cracked. "I followed standard protocols," he stammered. "Everything's documented." "Who shut off the fetal monitor, doctor?" Elias climbed one step, then another. "Those alarms worked fine. Then someone manually disabled them. That's a serious accusation. I behaved within accepted medical." "Who decided to ignore those warnings?" Elias asked, stopping a few feet below him. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. His presence filled the narrow space. Sweat glistened at Hargrove's hairline. "I'll need to consult counsel before." "Hospital policy?" Elias let out a humorless laugh. "My wife begged you. The nurse begged you. Your own resident begged you. And you walked away. You're grieving." Hargrove rallied, slipping back into condescension. "Family rarely sees these cases clearly. Complications. What I see," Elias cut in, "is a pattern. I wonder how many other women you've killed this way. How many other unavoidable complications you buried in paperwork." The stairwell door flew open above them. Gail Renshaw stormed in, smile fixed, eyes sharp. "Doctor, you're needed in labor and delivery," she said, stepping between them. "Agent Ward, I understand your loss, but this is neither the time nor place. There's never a good time to talk about dead black mothers in your hospital, is there?" Elias asked. "Only NDAs, settlements, and careful press releases." "I know you're hurting," she said smoothly, "but creating a scene won't bring her back. We can arrange a meeting with patient advocacy, discuss, negotiate my silence." Elias's eyes never left Hargrove. "How much is a dead wife worth in your risk management models?" Two security guards appeared at Renshaw's silent signal. "Escort Agent Ward to ground level," she ordered. "He needs time to process his loss." "This isn't over," Elias said quietly. "It is for now," she replied. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." As the guards led him away, Tessa slipped through the gap, pressing a folded scrap of paper into his palm. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "So sorry." Back home, Dawn painted gray streaks across his kitchen floor. His daughter's cries crackled through the baby monitor, but for a moment, Elias couldn't move. Naomi's yellow running shoes waited by the door, perfectly aligned, waiting for a woman who would never come back. He forced himself up, scooped his crying newborn into his arms. "I've got you, little girl," he murmured. She quieted against his chest, tiny fingers clutching his shirt. On the table lay a stack of discharge papers that should not exist. According to the hospital, his wife had been transferred to surgery and expired despite heroic measures. According to the chart, the fetal monitor had been normal until 12:45 a.m. But Elias remembered those alarms shrieking before midnight. He spread the papers out, eyes scanning timestamps, notes, medication orders. The timeline was wrong. Nurses supposedly doing routine checks during the exact minutes Naomi had been screaming. Treatments charted before symptoms were documented. Orders timestamped for monitoring they'd never done. Someone had gone into the record and scrubbed it clean. His phone buzzed. An email from Grinshaw at metgin.org with the subject, confidential settlement offer, time sensitive. They move fast when they're scared, he thought. Another buzz, this time a text from an unknown number. Check your email. Sending something important. Delete after reading. TG. The attachment contained scanned pages from 2 older patient files. 2 black mothers. 2 rare complications under Hargrove's care in the last year. Complaints dismissed. Alarms ignored. Care delayed. Both dead. Elias carried his sleeping daughter to the nursery, laid her gently in the crib Naomi had painted by hand. Then he cleared an entire wall of his dining room. Sticky notes went up in rows. Times. Names. Room numbers. Red string connected Naomi's first complaint at 11:17 p.m., Tessa's first request for imaging at 11:42, Hargrove's repeated refusals, the final crash shortly before 1. At the very top, in thick black marker, he wrote one word. Intent. He dialed a number he rarely used. Assistant U.S. Attorney Lila Moreno answered on the 3rd ring. I heard about your wife, she said, voice softened. Elias, I need a meeting, he cut in. Off the books. 1 hour. 4th Street Diner. After what happened, this is a conflict of interest, she warned. You know that. Somebody has to look into this, he said, and they're already rewriting history. Her silence lasted just a beat too long. 1 hour, she agreed. Don't do anything stupid before then. He hung up and stared at his wall. 3 dead women. Same symptoms. Same doctor. Same dismissals. Same unavoidable outcomes. The doorbell pounded. Through the peephole, he saw Detective Vince Malloy in plain clothes, a paper coffee cup in hand, expression friendly, eyes calculating. Elias cracked the door, but didn't invite him in. Tough night, Malloy said, voice coated in sympathy. Thought we should talk. Keep things from escalating. My wife died because a doctor ignored her, Elias said flatly. Everything I'm hearing says it was a high-risk pregnancy. Sometimes these things just happen. Malloy took a sip of coffee. Best thing you can do is accept reality, take the settlement, and be there for that little girl of yours. Is that what you tell all his victims' families? Elias asked. Malloy's smile thinned. Careful, Agent Ward. That kind of accusation can make life hard for everyone. The TV in the kitchen was still on low. A news anchor's voice drifted out. Respected obstetrician Dr. Preston Hargrove expressed deep sorrow today over the loss of a patient. While he can't comment on specifics, he reminds us that complications, especially in patients with risk factors, can be sudden and unavoidable. He's blaming her, Elias said. I'm telling you, Malloy said, setting the coffee on the porch rail. Take the money. Go be a dad. Some doors, once you open them, never close again. After Malloy left, Elias added a new sticking note to his wall. Malloy, some doors don't close. He took photos of everything, backed them up, then drove to the diner. 2 grieving parents sat across from him in a cracked vinyl booth. Marcus and Sandra Holloway. Their daughter, Jasmine, had been 24. First baby. First time in labor. Last time alive. She said the pain wasn't right, Sandra whispered. Said it felt like her insides were tearing. We got there around 9, Marcus added, jaw tight. Made us wait. When Hargrove finally showed, he said she was being dramatic. Called it anxiety. Told us to trust the process. Put her in the hallway, Sandra said, voice breaking. Told us the rooms were all full, but we saw empty ones. By the time they moved her, it was too late, Marcus forced out. Elias wrote everything down. Same language. Same pattern. Same doctor. Same result. Did they offer a settlement? He asked. Next morning, Marcus said bitterly. Big words. Said signing would honor her memory. Detective Malloy visit? Elias asked. Both parents stiffened. How did you know? Sandra asked. Told us not to make trouble, Marcus said. Said fighting would just hurt other families like ours. By the time Elias left the diner, His evidence board had 3 dead women, 1 living detective, and a system tightening around them like a noose. That night, as he rocked his daughter in the dim nursery, something scraped outside. He caught the glint of metal through the front window. The smell hit a second later. Gasoline. He was at the door in 3 strides. A figure in dark clothes raised a lighter near Naomi's car. Elias hit him low and hard. They slammed onto the lawn, rolling. The man was trained, sharp elbows, quick knees, but Elias was better, and rage made his movements clean. He twisted the man's arm until something in the shoulder gave, then pinned him. A cruiser's headlights washed over them. Detective Malloy stepped out, hands in his pockets. "Everything all right here, Agent Ward?" he called, voice light. "Got a call about a disturbance." "He was about to torch my wife's car," Elias said, not loosening his grip. "Looks to me like you're assaulting a city worker." Malloy's eyebrow lifted. Elias glanced down. The man's jacket had ridden up, revealing a municipal maintenance badge. "There's a gas can right there," Elias said. "What gas can?" Malloy casually kicked it into a bush. "You're making enemies, Ward. Dangerous ones. Be smart." The maintenance worker limped to a waiting SUV and vanished. Malloy leaned in close enough that only Elias could hear. "Next time we get a call out here, might play out different." After they left, Elias installed cameras at every corner of his house, layered motion alarms, reinforced the locks. In his daughter's room, he fixed a camera trained on her crib with a direct feed to his phone. He spent that night on the floor beside her, gun within reach, eyes on the live feeds. Outside, the neighborhood slept. Inside, he traced lines on his mental map, moving names and motives like pieces on a board. The next day, in a cramped federal records room that smelled like dust and disinfectant, Elias sat with Ayuse, Lila Moreno, and hospital accountant Priya Shah. Stacks of files hemmed them in. "I was supposed to monitor compliance and risk metrics," Priya said, tapping a spreadsheet. "Instead, I found patterns. We called them optimization delays internally." Translation: high-risk mothers left waiting while their cases were reassessed. Reassessed how? Moreno asked. "By insurance status. By race." Priya swallowed. Black women were 3 times more likely to be observed instead of treated. Those delays made billing codes more profitable. "We buried it under jargon." Priya slid over another chart. Donations and consulting fees flowing through shell companies into Judge Harold Pritchard's foundations, right after he dismissed complaints against the hospital. "When I flagged it, Administrator Renshaw had me move to accounts receivable. No more access." Elias pulled up electronic access logs on a terminal. "Multiple edits to Naomi's chart at 1:47 a.m., he said, less than an hour after she died. User ID, MediaTek IT contractor. Why would outside IT be in her file right then?" Moreno muttered. They didn't get a chance to dig deeper. In the parking garage below, 2 security officers cornered them. "Ms. Renshaw would like a word about your unauthorized access," the larger one said. "I'm a federal agent with a U.S. attorney," Elias replied. "Any concerns can go through proper channels." "That wasn't a request," the second guard said, moving to flank. "Lila, go," Elias said quietly. "Now." She hesitated, then moved toward her car. They let her pass. Elias didn't wait for the first shove. He let it come, rolled with it, and drove an elbow into the man's solar plexus. As the guard folded, Elias redirected him face first into a pillar, then swept the second man's legs, locking his arm until tendons squealed. In less than 20 seconds, both lay on the concrete, groaning, not broken. A plastic badge skittered across the floor. Elias scooped it up. MediaTek IT contractor. Jesus, Elias. Moreno hurried back. "What did you?" "Defended myself," he said, showing her the badge. "Same company from the access logs." They didn't get to argue. "Agent Ward." The command cut through the garage. SAC Dana Klein approached with 2 agents in tow, face granite. "Badge." "Now," she said. "These men assaulted," Moreno started. "What I see," Klein interrupted, "is an emotionally compromised agent assaulting hospital security after accessing restricted files without authorization." "Badge, Elias." He unclipped it slowly and placed it in her hand. His ID followed. "You're suspended, pending review," she said. "Clear your desk. Stay away from that hospital." That afternoon, back in his stripped-down home office, Elias stared at the empty badge holder. A text from Tessa lit his phone. "Monitor alarms require two-step manual override. Cannot be accidental." He pinned it to his wall. The pattern crystallized. Someone had built a system. Delay care, blame patients, alter records, threaten witnesses, pay families to disappear. Every attempt to question it ran into the same wall of protocol, complications, and quietly applied pressure. They'd taken his badge. They hadn't taken his training. He picked up a different phone. One connected not to a supervisor, but to an old informant. "Razor," Elias said when a familiar rough voice answered. "It's Ward. I need a favor." That night, in an abandoned storage complex that hummed with hidden servers, Razor Delaney walked him through the hospital's shadow infrastructure. "They think these boxes are just backups," Razor said, patting a server rack. "Really, they're where the real records live while the public ones get tidied." He handed Elias a hard drive. "Every time they migrate data or upgrade systems, they forget I keep my own logs. Names, times, user IDs, edits." The access logs matched Naomi's doctor chart. The morning after Elias got that drive, Nurse Tessa was found unconscious on her living room floor, house ransacked. Nothing taken except her phone and laptop. "It wasn't random," she whispered through swollen lips in the ER. Two men knew exactly what to grab. When Elias stepped out, Malloy was already at the nurse's station, coffee in hand. "City's getting rough," the detective said. "Even good neighborhoods. Guess we all gotta be careful." "Cut it," Elias said. "We both know what this is." "Suspended agents shouldn't meddle in open cases," Malloy replied, smile gone. "Bad things happen when people don't mind their own business." Later, standing at Naomi's grave with spring wind tugging at his coat, Elias called Moreno. "What if we give him another chance?" he asked quietly. "Another chance to do what?" she asked. "To be himself," Elias said. "We know his pattern. Dismiss, delay, document his objection. We can't get subpoenas past Pritchard, so we put a decoy in front of him. Same symptoms Naomi had. Wire on. Let him talk." "That's entrapment," she said automatically. "No," Elias said. "It's observation. Present him with a black woman in pain and watch what he chooses." Silence stretched. Birds called in the distance. A groundskeeper's mower droned. 24 hours, she said at last. "I find a sympathetic judge for a recording order, or we drop it. And if we do this, it has to be textbook." "Textbook got my wife killed," he said. "But I hear you." The next afternoon, in a black surveillance van parked 2 blocks from the hospital, Agent Ward watched Simone Brooks walk through the ER doors on split screens. She wore a maternity top over a prosthetic belly and a tiny microphone hidden in her neckline. "Audio check," Moreno's voice crackled. "Loud and clear," Elias said. Inside, Simone's performance was flawless, breathing fast but not frantic, voice steady but strained. "I'm 32 weeks, she told the triage nurse. "The pain started all of a sudden, and my vision's gone blurry. It doesn't feel like normal contractions." Blood pressure cuff hissed. 160/95, a nurse murmured. "Let's get her to a bed." Through the tiny mic, Elias heard the squeak of wheels, the beep of machines, the low murmur of staff. "OB coverage?" someone called. "Dr. Hargrove's on," another answered. On the monitor, resident Dr. Aiden Park appeared at Simone's bedside. Elias recognized him as the man whose courage had come too late for Naomi. "Severe pain, elevated BP, visual changes," Park said. "We need labs and an ultrasound." Now, came the smooth interruption. No need for theatrics. Hargrove slid into frame, coat immaculate, expression mildly annoyed. "Good afternoon," he said to Simone. "I hear you're uncomfortable." "It feels like something's tearing," Simone said, eyes wide. "And I can't see right. Everything's fuzzy." He scanned the monitor dismissively. "First pregnancy?" "Yes, but pain tolerance varies," he said, not looking up, "particularly in certain demographic groups. You're likely experiencing anxiety." "Doctor," Her pressure's 170/100. Park interjected. Guidelines say. Thank you, Dr. Park, Hargrove cut in. We don't order expensive tests for every emotional outburst. Some rest in the hall will be more useful than a CT scanner. In the van, Moreno underlined furiously. She's describing classic warning signs. Park persisted. Protocol. Dr. Park. Hargrove's voice went cold. If you're that eager to waste resources, document that you're overreacting against my professional advice. Elias watched Park glance at Simone, then at the monitors, then back at Hargrove. I'll document that I recommended imaging, Park said, and that you refused. That one word, document, made the doctor's jaw tighten. But he nodded once, stiffly. Fine. Run your tests. When they come back normal, perhaps you'll rethink what drama looks like in certain populations. Every word streamed into the recorder in Simone's clothes. In the van, Elias nearly crushed his pen. When the preliminary tests returned reassuring, Park said gently, good news. We're not seeing immediate signs of catastrophic complications, but we're keeping you for observation. As I said, Hargrove announced loudly enough for the mic. Anxiety presenting as pain. These people always want extra testing when all they need is reassurance. Moreno closed her notebook with a snap. That's it, she said. We've got his pattern on tape start to finish. That night, Elias sent everything. Razor's data, Priya's financial charts, Simone's recording to Dana Klein. This isn't just malpractice, he said over the secure line. It's a conspiracy that kills black women for profit and hides the bodies in paperwork. On the other end, Klein listened to the clips. He heard Hargrove silencing alarms, dismissing nurses, sneering about these people. He saw the billing codes Priya had highlighted. Optimization delays, risk scores, bonus triggers. He read Razor's access logs, showing contractor edits minutes after deaths. Send it all, he said finally. Every file, every recording. We're taking this federal. No more local involvement. And Ward, you were right not to let this go. Before dawn, black armored vans hummed in a warehouse lot. Agents checked rifles, radios, and warrant packets. Inside the command vehicle, Elias's once messy wall now glowed across multiple screens. Clean, organized, irrefutable. Teams in position, Moreno reported. Storage facility confirmed. Billing offices mapped. Hospital servers identified. Renshaw's residence, Malloy's address, Pritchard's foundations, all tagged. Klein turned to Elias, held out his badge. Agent Ward, she said formally, you're reinstated, effective immediately. Make this count. At her signal, the operation unfolded with surgical precision. At Razor's old storage facility, agents kicked in the door to the server room, just as an automated purge script spun up. Forensic techs froze the kill commands, cloned drives, and watched layers of deleted records come back to life. At 3 different billing companies, agents seized computers mid-wipe, catching spreadsheets and emails detailing loss minimization strategies for maternal deaths. At Gail Renshaw's house, they found a burned barrel still warm, half-charred papers inside listing patient names, complaint summaries, settlement amounts. Across town, officers pulled Detective Malloy from his unmarked car before he could leave his driveway. Detective Vince Malloy, an agent said, you're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction, and corruption under color of law. He tried to smile. Come on, guys. We all want the same thing here. The handcuffs clicked closed anyway. Inside the hospital, security cameras caught the moment phones went quiet. Radios cut out. Then the front doors slid open to admit a column of federal agents. No sirens, no shouting, just badges, warrants, and purpose. On the 3rd floor, Dr. Preston Hargrove stood over a patient, lecturing about normal discomfort when the door opened. Dr. Hargrove, the lead agent said, you're under arrest. This is outrageous, he sputtered. I'm in the middle of. Do you have any idea who I am? Yes, the agent replied. We know exactly who you are. They read him his rights as they cuffed him. Nurses watched from doorways. Phones rose to capture video. In the lobby, patients stared as the man who'd once sneered at their pain was marched past them in restraints. Just off to the side, Near the information desk stood Elias, badge on his belt, arms folded, silent. Hargrove's eyes locked onto his. For the first time, something like real fear flashed there. He finally understood that the quiet man he'd condescended to wasn't just another grieving husband. He was the one who'd followed every thread, documented every lie, and brought the system down around him. Words died on the doctor's tongue. The courtroom months later was packed. Families of the dead filled the benches. Naomi's mother clutched a photo of her daughter smiling, hand on her pregnant belly. Marcus and Sandra Holloway sat in the front row, Jasmine's picture between them. On the stand, Priya described the optimization delays and how black mothers were held in observation longer, their care reassessed until it was too late. A tech played security footage of Hargrove manually muting alarms. An analyst walked the jury through edit logs showing records altered within hours of deaths. In one clip, Hargrove's own voice filled the room. These people always exaggerate. We can't order every test just because a black woman says she's in pain. The gallery rippled, a collective flinch. Resident Dr. Park testified about the night Naomi died, the times he'd wanted to push harder and hadn't. About the new policies now in place under the federal consent decree, mandatory escalation regardless of senior physicians' opinions when criteria were met. Nurse Tessa, still bearing faint scars, told the court about the piece of paper she'd slipped into Elias's hand and the beating she'd received for trying to help. Even Renshaw, in her plea deal orange, took the stand. She laid out how complaints were buried, how settlements were structured, how Judge Pritchard had signaled which cases needed to go away. By the time Moreno rested the government's case, the pattern was undeniable. Multiple civil rights violations, fraud, obstruction, conspiracy resulting in death. The judge looked over the evidence, then at the rows of families. The scope of this is staggering, she said. 2 weeks later, she sentenced Hargrove to decades in federal prison. Renshaw and Malloy received their own long terms. Pritchard resigned in disgrace, his accounts frozen, his name now synonymous with corruption. But the story didn't end with their punishment. On a bright spring morning, beneath a new sign reading Naomi Ward Maternal Care Initiative, a crowd gathered outside a clinic painted in warm, welcoming colors. This time, the cameras weren't there to catch an arrest. They were there for a beginning. A community leader took the mic first, explaining how the federal consent decree had rewritten hospital policies across the region. Required response times, automatic second opinions, real consequences for ignoring alarms. Most importantly, she said, we are investing in the future. The Naomi Ward Scholarship will fund black students pursuing careers in nursing, midwifery, and obstetrics. We're not just changing policies. We're changing who wears the white coat. Tessa rolled her wheelchair forward, scissors in hand. Her voice caught once, but she pushed through. I spent 3 decades biting my tongue, she said. I watched women suffer because speaking up felt dangerous. Naomi's death showed us the cost of that silence. She glanced at Elias in the crowd. Because of her, because her husband refused to let this be buried, and because so many of you finally spoke truth to power, this clinic exists. And I promise you, she will not be the last black mother remembered here, but she will be one of the last we lose this way. The ribbon fell. Applause swelled. Dr. Park stepped up next. Every patient who walks through these doors will be believed, he said. Every complaint will be documented. Every warning sign will be acted on. We cannot change the past, but we can honor it by refusing to repeat it. Later, near the end of the program, Klein and Moreno stood together off to the side, watching as families toured exam rooms bright with murals and stocked with equipment. This isn't just about one case, Moreno said quietly. It never was, Klein replied. Finally, Elias carried his daughter up to the podium. He hadn't planned to speak, but when the crowd hushed, he found himself looking out at faces that had shared his fight, Tessa and Park, Priya and Razor, standing in the back, the Holloways, his mother-in-law, the scholarship students in their new lanyards. Naomi believed in dignity, he said. She believed everyone deserves to be heard, to be treated like their life matters. He shifted his daughter on his hip. She reached out, fingers patting the microphone. This clinic isn't about revenge, he went on. It's about building what should have existed for her. A place where no one gets called dramatic for saying they're in pain. Where no one gets left in a hallway because of their skin color or insurance plan. He glanced back at the banner with Naomi's name. My daughter will grow up knowing her mother's life changed laws, he said. That her mother's name doesn't just mark a grave, it marks a promise. That evening, as the sun bled gold and purple across the sky, Elias walked his usual loop through the neighborhood. His daughter slept against his chest, lulled by the steady rhythm of his steps. They passed the new clinic, lights glowing warmly in the windows. Inside, staff moved through rooms, setting things in place for the first patients tomorrow. Across the street, a group of medical students in Naomi Ward scholarship lanyards waited at a bus stop, trading notes about bias in medicine, about listening to patients the first time they said something was wrong. One caught Elias's eye and gave a small, respectful nod. They passed the police station. Malloy's name had been scraped off the door. Inside, new policies hung on bulletin boards, mandatory documentation, clear reporting chains, no more quiet favors for well-connected administrators. Crickets sang in the grass. A breeze lifted leaves overhead. Ordinary sounds Naomi would have pointed out as they sat on the porch swing. Your mama taught me that strength isn't about making people afraid, Elias murmured to his daughter. It's about making things better, even when that's harder than making people hurt. He paused at the end of their driveway, looking up at their house, at the flower boxes Naomi had planted. The world's still not fair, he said. There are still people who see a black woman in pain and think dramatic. Still people who will try to bury the truth when it's inconvenient. He looked down at the small, sleeping face against his chest. But they didn't bury her, he whispered. They didn't bury what she stood for. We dug. We documented. We refused to shut up. And because of that, there's one less place where our pain can be brushed aside. On the porch, the swing rocked gently in the evening breeze. Not empty. Waiting. Naomi, he said into the quiet, her name steady now. Not shattered. We couldn't save you. But we made sure they'll have to look every mother like you in the eye from now on. And this time, they'll listen. If you got caught up in this story, tap that like button to help it reach more people. And hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Right now on your screen, you'll see 2 other stories I picked just for you. Go watch one of those next, and have a wonderful day.